John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J. Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. I'm your host, Jack Fredericks, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, who should be on at some point here pretty shortly. I know he's a little bit here and there because of the convention, but he said he's going to be on, so I'm sure we'll see him soon. John Fredericks, he'll be on the show, co-host, as well as senior contributors for GodzillaWins.com, both Nate Perry and Dan Angel, senior editors and senior contributors. We also have Trent Connor coming on to talk a little bit later about some MLB and some UFC stuff. And then, of course, Jay Delsing will be on at the top of the hour. Great show for you today. We're going to do a whole bunch of different stuff. I cannot believe I thought of this many topics to talk about in July. I'm actually pretty proud of myself for that, because I didn't really think there was going to be anything to talk about, but I am a wellspring of creativity. So we have all sorts of things we're going to talk about, including Bronny James by the numbers. We're going to probably argue a little bit about this ESPN top 100 athletes of the 21st century list, which is pretty interesting. We'll do a little Rookie of the Year talk. Bunch of MLB storylines, like, for instance, are the Mets back from the dead? Well, that will be fun to talk about, I guess. Things like that. Are the White Sox the worst team in history? Then, like I said, top of the hour, 10 o'clock, UFC. We're going to do a lot of UFC, at least a little bit of UFC anyway, UFC Vegas. And then we'll do the Open Championship, last major of the year. Should be a lot of fun with Jay, and talk a little bit about the Barracuda, which is the other golf tournament going on right now in the Reno Tahoe area. Shout out to Chan Kim. He's our man. He's tied for third out there. If you want to put a couple dollars on Chan, you definitely should. He's a lot of fun to root for. So great show for you. Stick around the entire time, because we're going to have a lot of fun this week on the show. And just as always, even though we love to have fun, we're for entertainment purposes only. So if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537 in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 800-327-5050. Visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org in Massachusetts. Call 877-G-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Kansas, New Hampshire, 888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut, 100-BETS-OFF in Iowa, or visit opgr.org in Oregon. All right, looks like I got Dan and Nate, and there's Dad for the beginning of the show. Glad to see everybody. Excited to have another week of incredible topics to talk about. If I do say so myself, what a show we got planned for us today. Let's get right into it. Here's where I want to start, guys. I know I texted you about this last night, because I want to do something a little bit different than what we had planned. Usually, beginning of the show, as all of our loyal listeners know, all 5,000 of them, that when we do a little weekly obsession at the beginning of the show, what everybody's obsessed with. But this week, we got something special for you, because ESPN dropped their top 100 list of professional athletes, not amateur athletes, but professional athletes of the 21st century. So since 2000, this is what ESPN believes to be their top 100 list. I'm sure if you've been talking or you follow sports at all, you've seen this list. Now, we're going to get into it, because this is kind of an interesting list. I'm just going to list the top 10 in case you haven't, as a listener, you haven't got this list. You can just find it on ESPN. I'll list the top 10, but we're going to kind of talk about if we agree with this list, where we would move some people, maybe our own personal top 10, some stuff like that. So here's just the top 10. Now, there's people all over this list, including Adrian Beltre, which I think is kind of weird, but okay. Number 1, Michael Phelps, the swimmer, as you know. Number 2 is Serena Williams. This is according to ESPN. Number 3, Lionel Messi. Number 4, LeBron James. Number 5, Tom Brady. 6 is Federer. 7, Simone Biles. 8, Tiger Woods. 9, Usain Bolt. And 10, Kobe Bryant. Then the list goes on from there. Novak is number 11. Nadal, number 12. A lot of tennis players up there at the top, but we've had a lot of tennis dominance in the last 20 years. Let's get into this. Nate, I want to start with you here. What on this list do you like? What do you dislike? Do you like Phelps as number 1, the greatest athlete in all of sports since 2000?
I mean, no, not really. I struggled. I guess I figured because I'm a golf guy, I just Tiger is Tiger, and most of his best work was done. He really, he won 2 majors before 2000, so most of his best work was done in the 21st century. From 2000 onwards. And I just kept struggling with where to put him because the 7 people in front of him are all basically the best in their sport of the generation, if not of all time, right? Lionel Messi's got a strong argument to be the greatest soccer player of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Serena's obviously, got the strongest argument for the best female tennis player or best tennis player, period. Federer, same. LeBron, same. Everyone's generational and great. And it was tricky for me to think about. But Tiger still feels low because we were talking about it yesterday a little bit, kind of getting ready for the show. And it feels like at some point in this top 10, it's just the writers being like, okay, well, which sport's just the hardest? And then we're just going to rank those instead of because it's too hard to nitpick sort of you're the greatest at whatever sport. So I felt like Tiger was low at 8, just for a variety of reasons, not just how much he won, but how much he sort of changed the sport. Golf is forever changed by Tiger, more than anyone else, more than Tom Brady changed the NFL, more than Federer changed tennis. Tiger changed golf in the way that, Serena probably changed tennis and golf changed, how we watch Olympic swimming. So that's to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tiger's an interesting one, Dan, at 8. I'm glad Dad's took the time to microwave his coffee when the show started. Thanks so much, Dad, for just doing house chores on the bus. And he can't hear me, so we can do as much talking about that as we want. There he is, fresh from microwaving his coffee. Dan, so Tiger, I don't know, feels low. Right. LeBron feels in a weird position. Above,
he feels high. LeBron feels high to me at 4.
Yeah, above Brady, I think. But
yeah,
Dan, what do you think? Because I know, you're a soccer guy. Maybe Messi's the greatest athlete of all time since 2000.
I mean, it feels like he probably deserves it, considering that he's won everything on the planet. The biggest knock against Lionel Messi was, for the longest time, was that Argentina always came up just short. He was always going to be second best to Maradona as far as Argentinian soccer went and worldwide because Maradona brought a world title to Argentina and Lionel Messi hadn't drug Argentina across that finish line. But the last few years, that has completely changed because Argentina now has 2 Copa Americas and a World Cup title that Messi was a very large part of. In that final against France, he scored twice. So he's proven himself an all-time great, has won when it mattered, has won everything possible at the club level. I mean, and Phelps at 1, I mean, yeah, he's been incredibly dominant in swimming. Serena, of course, has been dominant in tennis, but it's tough to put a swimmer that high because they're only relevant every 4 years. I mean, and then they fade back into obscurity. And Serena, yeah, she was totally dominant, but her era was really, really weak as far as competition went. There were so many Grand Slam tournaments where she had to play 2-3 matches out of 7 where losing was even a remote possibility. The women's tournament just wasn't really that strong, especially compared to where it was in the 90s when Steffi Graf was dominating everything. So, I mean, does she deserve to be top 10? Sure, but 2 seems a little bit high. And I would put Tiger ahead of both her and Michael Phelps.
Yeah. So Phelps, on the one side of the argument, I kind of like Phelps as I think he's too high because if we're just talking about, okay, well, what's the most difficult sports to achieve the most in, as far as like individual, obviously soccer is a big one because a lot of times those guys are driven. Same thing with basketball. Sometimes you can be just the best player on the planet and you just beat everyone all the time. You can see that swimming is something that I don't know if the ESPN writers really respected outside of Phelps, because Katie Ledecky, who has had arguably not as illustrious a career as Phelps, but may end up having as an illustrious career as Phelps, and she's way down on the list. Whereas tennis-wise, is she 15? Well,
Yeah.
Even so, my point stands that tennis-wise, you have Serena, Federer, Novak, and then I believe I'm missing one. Nadal.
Well, to be completely fair though, Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal are probably the three greatest men's tennis players of all time. They just all happen to play in the same era. Like the men's tournament the competitiveness has still been very good on the men's side. The problem is they're playing with three all-time greats, and these guys who are pretty strong tennis players who would have won multiple Grand Slams in their own right. Like it's almost kind of flipped with the women's tour. Like back in the 90s, Sampras and Agassi were outstanding, but they were playing in an era where there weren't really that many dominant male tennis players. There were times when you had a couple good, but not quite all-time, like good to great, not all-time greats who were winning Grand Slams. And then the French Open in that time period was basically, okay, pick a random Spaniard or South American, and you're probably going to have a pretty decent shot of getting the champion, because it just went through like 4 or 5 different guys who were winning those titles. And in the Federer, Djokovic, Nadal era, there's been none of that. It's just been those 3 guys, Andy Murray a little bit, because he also would have been considered an all-time great if he played in a different era. But those 3 have just been that dominant.
Yeah, they have. And I mean, I guess my argument for Serena, and I think I would put Serena number 1, and my argument for that is just that, you know, regardless of the competition, the amount of major championships, the 23 major championships, what she did for really tennis in general, women's and men's, the fact that she is, you know, just sort of this iconic tennis player and was so dominant. Regardless, I know the competition, that there's an argument that the competition wasn't great, but, you know, she can't control that. She's got to play when she's at her best. So I'd probably put her number 1. I think the Tiger one is really confounding. Dad, you're a man of strong opinion. I know you got.
Here's my Phelps argument, really quick. Is just He does it over 12 years, and there's no margin for error. He only gets to show up once every 4 years. He does it from 2004 to 2016, and it's not like, you know, dropping a set in tennis or having a bad first quarter in a basketball game or whatever. Like, you have to perform in the race at that moment. With no, like, you can't get a bad start. You can't have, like, you know, lane violation. Just boom, you have to perform. And I think that's something that is shocking.
That's fair.
That is fair. And that's my argument for, wait for it, Justify, 2018 Triple Crown winner. Where's Justify on the list? One of the greatest athletes of the 20th century, absolutely crushing it. You know,
Secretariat was 35 in the 20th century list.
Yeah, I think Secretariat, greatest athlete of all time. I know what I know personally is I could never beat a horse in a foot race. So I say shout out to Justify.
None of these athletes could. Wasn't there a show like I think Man versus Beast a few years ago where Fox did this?
I think there was. Dad, jump in here. I know you got a lot of opinions about this.
Well, there's some asinine picks in here. I mean, is this like the best in your sport, or how many trophies did you win? I mean, or is this the best athlete? Okay. First of all, 17, Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, the guy's 7'6" or something. Not an athlete. He just happened to be a big, strong, tall guy that could dunk the basketball. So to put him in and say, "Oh, you're the top 20 athlete," I mean, an athlete is, to me, it's something different than you just excel in a sport. It's like the other stupid pick in here. What was it? Number 5, I think, right? Tom Brady. I mean, come on. The guy throws a football. I mean, what, you got to tell me he's the best athlete?
Wow.
I think that's a joke. Brady, Shaquille, these got to be 2 of the stupidest picks in here.
Coming for
but
Brady.
I tell you, football. I tell you who my number 1 pick is, though. Patrick Mahomes. I think they had him down to 20. I mean, you talk about an athlete. This guy can do everything. He can run, he can pass, he can throw. I mean, if they played him at cornerback, he could do that. He played baseball. I think in college, he was drafted in baseball, right? I mean, this guy, you talk about an athlete. You watch this guy sometimes in these games, and you're in disbelief how he did that. So, look, I think their number one pick is probably right. I mean, if you think of what ESPN, I mean, Michael Phelps swimming, probably if you had him do anything athletically, play golf, swim, croquet, I'm sure he'd excel at it. But Shaquille O'Neal, I mean, come on, man, you're 7'7", you're 60, you dunk a basketball. Tom Brady, I mean, when he had a great team behind him. If Brady was on a crap team, you would have never heard of the guy. I mean, he could throw a football and stand in a pocket. Mahomes, that guy's like, he's not even. I think he was the prelude to AI. That's what I think Mahomes is.
This
So
is
I'm gonna get Mahomes.
John's requirement is he's got to fill up a Letterman jacket. That's
Okay.
sports.
Hold on. I got to do
guy
the.
is unbelievable.
Which
You're
one
right. I gotta-
was first?
Yeah, I got to do the healthy cell read, and then we'll get back into this.
I just took my 2 healthy cells 5 minutes ago in the morning, the bio and the focus. I actually just took them 5 minutes ago. That's why I'm so
Okay,
shocked.
well, here we go. Dad, tell us about the healthy cells products and the focus, because that's got to be one of the reasons why you got Mahomes at number 1 here.
Oh yeah, no question about it. You know what? Healthy cells, one of the best things that you can get involved in. I don't care what age you are, because their products are super. And I don't want to take pills. It's 85% of it just goes through your body. Healthy cell comes in a little packet. You tear it off, you down it. I take 3 healthy cells a day. And look at me, I jump out of bed every day. I'm like a spring chicken at 66. It's unbelievable. When I go to bed, I take REM sleep. Why? Because I'm going to get a good night's sleep. Last night, okay, I got 9 hours. So like I'm fired up today. So I got 9 hours of sleep last night after getting 3 every day at that convention or 3.5. So I down that 50 minutes before I go to bed. I'm out, put you in the deep sleep, but it's all natural. Then when I get up, I take 2. I take the bio vitamins, which is all the vitamins that I know I need, and I'm not going to get during the day because I have a hectic schedule, and I want to be sure at my age that I'm healthy. So I take all those vitamins, you just down and put it in, and then I take the focus. Now, what the focus does is it just keeps your mind clear. Probably at 25, you don't need that, but you get a little bit older. Maybe Joe Biden should take it. I don't know. It might be better to take something, but I take the focus, and that just works out great. Now, they've also got, if you got aches and pains, they got the joint pain. When my back was hurting, I took that for 90 days. That my back doesn't hurt anywhere to the extent it did. But I always have a stash of those. Takes about 2 weeks to get going. But Healthy Cell, I swear to God, I take these every day. So is everybody in my family. Ann takes them, Joe takes them. Got to get the vitamins in you, and you got to get a good night's sleep. Just go to healthycell.com/Godzilla. Do it now, because what is more important than feeling good? I mean, when you feel good, everything is going to be better in your life. When you're not feeling good, not so much. Go to healthycell.com/Godzilla. Promo code Godzilla. Going to get 20% off your first order. I want to thank Dr. G and Papa for inventing this whole thing. His son, Doug G and Papa, a friend of mine, and also with Healthy Cell Tara. I know you're going to tune into this, and I'm sorry your Mariners are now tied for first with the Astros. You guys are done. We're going to be 2 games up on Sunday. healthycell.com/Godzilla. Promo code Godzilla, 20% off.
You're like
Sorry, Tara.
What's more important than feeling good?
Yeah.
Gotta feel good, baby.
That's right. You're
Yeah,
like You're like the Healthy Cell modern Prometheus. You're like half human, half Healthy Cell. You take more Healthy Cell products than anyone on earth.
Look
Hey, look at you.
The energy that I've got at 66. I went through this I was there 2 weeks because I had to do the platform committee. I had the bus there, right?
Mhm.
During the actual convention itself, I go to bed at midnight and get up at 3:30 every day. I did that for 5 days, right? Because it's go, go, go. I mean, you got to go, you got to do your show, then you got to do this, then you got to do that, then you got meetings, right? Then you got the convention itself, then you got something going on afterwards. So how do you survive on that? Can't do it, month. You can do it for a week. I did it for a week. Got 9 hours tonight. I'm here in my RV. I have no idea where I am. Somewhere in Ohio
Yeah.
Turnpike.
Crushing it at
Oh,
the
Lord.
convention. Maybe you should be on the
Crushing it,
100,
baby.
100 greatest athletes of all time since 2000 with your convention schedule. Dan, I know that you it was hurting your whole soul to listen to him talk about how Mahomes somehow should be number 1 and Brady should be less than 5. So I'll give you a minute for a rebuttal, then we'll talk a little bit more about
Okay, it wasn't hurting my soul. It was just mystifying, almost as mystifying as why John's taking the Ohio Turnpike. Like, the tolls on that are just insane. First of all, I mean, just take 70. But anyway, beyond geography, like, John, what in the world are you talking about? If Brady was on a crap team, nobody would have heard of him. Brady was on a crap team for the last decade of his career and won 3 Super Bowls out of it. Like, the Patriots were held together with Brady's skills, chewing gum and chicken wire, and he still managed to have them in the AFC Championship game every dang year. He won a couple Super Bowls with a absolute garbage team around him, and then goes to Tampa Bay and turns that team into a Super Bowl winner. I mean, I'm sorry, but what in the world are you talking about there?
Because it doesn't say who's the best football quarterback of all time. I would probably vote for Tom Brady there, put him right up there with Joe Namath, Sonny Jurgensen. But it didn't say that. It said who is the best athlete. It means all-around athlete, right? You can't even compare Brady to what Mahomes, his physical attributions are, is incredible. I mean, you see this guy running.
They're not using athlete in that sense, John.
It's about athletes, not football quarterbacks.
It's about. John, it's not about their athletic skills. It's about their skills in their respective sports.
It's about their athletic.
Let's call it, who's the best quarterback, not who's the best athlete.
Okay. Well,
you exclude every non-quarterback from the list. It's what every player does well.
I mean, the way that we measure
about how low baseball was.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. The way that we measure athletes is through winning. So, I mean, like, anybody can run a good 40. Obviously, I mean, Mahomes maybe should be a little bit higher. And if we revisited this in 2050, he might be number 1. I mean, for real, with there is no ceiling with Patrick Mahomes for sure. But as we stand right now, of course, if we're looking at this seriously, you got to have you got to have Brady, up at the top 5 for sure. I think he should be before LeBron if you're just talking about accomplishments. So, let's talk about
to be fair on LeBron. Like, I will defend LeBron on the whole winning isn't quite everything for this, because some of one of the biggest knocks on LeBron that just drives me nuts is the whole finals thing with Jordan. How people say Jordan's 6-0 in the finals and LeBron has several losses, but what that does is it gives Jordan credit for repeatedly losing to the Pistons. Like, that argument, if the Pistons were the Seattle Pistons, they would have been in the Western Conference and beaten Jordan repeatedly in the finals. So would then Jordan have not been anywhere near an all-time great because he'd have 3 or 4 losses in the finals? No, it doesn't make sense. I mean, LeBron, to me, is an all-time great and probably is deserving of where he is, even though his team just didn't rise to the occasion.
I think I would switch Brady and LeBron. I'm not saying LeBron should be
fair.
Number 10.
Putting LeBron at 5 is not a problem.
Yeah. All right, Dad. So, and Nate, let's go to Nate first. Baseball doesn't make the list until number 40, I believe. Justin
24.
Verlander. Who's 24?
Albert Pujols is the greatest baseball player of the 2000s.
Yeah, which is probably correct. In many ways, I guess, because Barry Bonds was so dominant in the 90s. But why so low on baseball here at 24? Nate, we'll go to you then, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just struggling to figure it out. I mean, I guess I'm reading the list and then it just sort of makes sense. I mean, I think that, it feels, I mean, Sidney Crosby's great and Kevin Garnett is great and they're just above Pujols. And then below Pujols, it starts to get kind of weird because then it's like Floyd Mayweather, who's maybe the greatest at his sport to ever do it. And then Peyton Manning after that. So I mean, baseball feels low, but then I see Floyd Mayweather behind Albert Pujols, and I think I don't know, Floyd was 50-0.
And John Jones is another one where I think, man, that's pretty. He shows up a little low as well. But Dad, you gotta make a case for these baseball players, right? I mean, Pujols at 24. He was the most dominant player forever.
I mean, I guess we're not on the same page here. This is the greatest athletes, not who dominated the game for X years. Because if you want to say that, it's Barry Bonds. I mean, so I'm not even sure what this athlete thing means, and we're not on the same page. So if you're asking me who was the best athlete baseball player of the last, what is it, since what, 2000? I mean, I'd have to go back. I'd rather go back to the 90s and pick Deion Sanders. As far as I'm concerned, the best athlete baseball player I ever saw was Deion Sanders when he played for Atlanta. And I don't remember exactly what the time frame was, but the guy played football with the Falcons on Sunday, and then after the game, he flew to wherever Atlanta was playing, and he played center field with the Braves. And then he would hit homers, and then he would steal bases, and then he would go back on Friday to go back to the Falcons. I mean, has anybody ever done that? No. So
John is just running a long con on
baseball players. I mean, it's not even he played a two-sport game. He played two sports and was dominant during the season, during both seasons. At the same time, I've never seen anything like that in my life. So my vote, I don't care what the time frame is, would go to Deion.
All of this is leading towards Derrick Henry's inclusion in John's personal top 10.
Don't worry.
Derrick Henry definitely in the top 10.
Yeah. So here I got. I have it.
He's changed the rules to be able to beat Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I already have his. I have John's personal list, top 10 greatest athletes since 2000, based on John. Here they go. Ready? Number 1, obviously, Jose Altuve, of course.
Yes, of course. No.
The fact that he's not even on the list is a little ridiculous, but okay.
Pisses me off.
Number 2, Derrick Henry, obviously.
Oh yes. No.
Number 3, Lance Berkman. Number 4, Roy Oswalt. Number 5, Ryan Tannehill.
Very good.
Number 6, J.J. Westerholt. Number 7, I know. Number 7, Donald Trump. He's a club champion. Number 8.
Wait a minute. And he played baseball, and he was a championship bowler, and he played first base, and was given a minor league contract by the Yankees, and he turned it down. But go ahead.
Number 7. Number 8, the Minute Maid trash cans in 2017. Super good. Number 9, Lance McCullers Jr., his 4 starts in the last 50 years. Number 10, Mike Vrabel. There's John's top 10 list right there.
No, I will put number 10 would be your little brother. I will put his
I was gonna do that, but I didn't want to.
That kid, you talk about an athlete. Yeah. That kid's an athlete. Yeah. He's an athlete. By the way, he's in the Appalachian League, right? Got hurt at Cape Cod. They put him on the IR. Then they sent him packing because he was out too long. So then West Virginia put him in the Appalachian League. So he's playing with the Kingsport Axemen. And he's so far pitched out like 4 innings, 1 hit, no runs, no walks. So he's doing good. Axeman. So he's having a good time.
Nate, let's finish this conversation. You can put a bow on it for us. Just final thoughts on the top 100, or give us your reasoning for the fact that Tiger Woods maybe should be number 1.
I mean, I think that if there was an argument to be made for Tiger to be number 1, it's that he fundamentally changed the landscape of the sport in a way that no other athlete has in the 21st century. Golf was a nothing sport that nobody paid attention to until Tiger, really won the Masters in '97 when he won his first major. But then really, I mean, like in 2000 is when he won the sort of, Grand Slam where he had all 4 major titles at one time. He did that in 2000, 2001. So, and when you're talking about the money that's come into the game, the interest that's come into the game, even the sort of current situation with golf, Live Golf, trying to start this breakaway tour, like all of this interest that's generated these rival leagues and these sort of like this massive amount of money, like that's all Tiger. Without Tiger, none of this happens. There's no other athlete that can, like, we're still going to watch the Olympics without Phelps. We're still going to watch Wimbledon without Serena. We're still going to watch the NBA without LeBron. Like, Tiger Woods made golf must-watch viewing in a way that no other athlete has done in the sport.
At least since 2000. I think a lot of those sort of game-changing athletes, we go back to the 60s, the 70s, when some of those sports really grabbed our attention. And I think that, you're probably right as far as that goes. And we listened to Jay Delsing talk about, golf before Tiger all the time, and it sounded like a hoot, but it definitely didn't sound like it was now. So maybe we'll get Jay's take on here.
That's good analysis, Nate. I just want to give a shout out to Nate. I really didn't think of it in those terms, but yeah, I think that's good analysis, because you did revitalize the sport. One day, I guess we'll be talking about Caitlin Clark in the WNBA in that same genre. But that's
100%.
That's interesting.
That is a good segue, John.
We've been having that discussion, me and Jack, via text for a couple of weeks now, talking about that.
Yeah, I can't. It's a segment I want to do on the show, and I can't really figure out how to do it. It's kind of like, what are the analogs?
What about Michael Jordan?
Well, he
retired in '98, and his work after that with the Wizards was terrible.
Yeah, that's why I think that's why they cut it at 2000 to make it a little bit more
2000 and up. Got it.
But I think here's my final thought. If I were ESPN, just to stir the pot, I just would have put Caitlin Clark at 100. I just would have put her at 100. Just last one. Just stir the pot. Just stir the pot. Make everybody fired up. Be like, Caitlin Clark, she's 100. We'll talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, we got to talk a little bit about Native Path, one of my new favorite products. Oh my God, I love Native Path. Been taking this fish oil all the time, and that's because have you heard about the possible side effects from taking ibuprofen? And to top it all off, ibuprofen doesn't even get to the main cause of your pain and swelling problems. It is only temporary pain relief, and it's only masking the true problem, which is inflammation. This is not a solution for your pain. It's just a Band-Aid. General inflammation, you got to be able to get rid of it. When your feet swell up and all that stuff, you got to be able to have some sort of natural way to get rid of this. Right now, you can go to getnativepath.com, and I'm going to spell it out for you so you can get there. GetNativePath. Getnativepath.com/Godzilla wins. Just like the show, GODZILLAWINS. Godzilla wins. Go to GetNativePath /Godzilla wins to learn more and see your special offer for being our listeners. That's why researchers are saying to add this Antarctic super nutrient to your diet. This is the Antarctic krill oil from Native Path. I take this every day. I love it. It helps reduce some of that inflammation and some of that swelling. I don't have the bottle with me just right now, but if I did, I'd show you it. GetNativePath.com. Antarctic krill oil. Gotta love it. One of my new favorite products. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids. That's what this is. But not just any form of omegas. These are omega-3 fatty acids sourced from wild-caught krill. The omega-3 content from krill has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. Better yet, for a limited time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic krill oil for as low as $23 a month. Absolute steal. You can't get better than that, especially for those omega-3s. Reduce that inflammation, reduce that swelling. Go to getnativepath.com. GetNativePath.com/Godzilla wins. GODZILLAWINS. You just go right there, getnativepath.com /Godzilla wins. It'll take you to the landing page, and very shortly thereafter, you can navigate right to where you can buy your Antarctic krill oil, your new favorite supplement, for just $23 a bottle. I need you to go do it right now. Okay, now I did have a bunch of things scheduled before that 100, list talk, but I think we'll just hold off on Bronny and Caitlin Clark. For the time being. We always have time to talk about those two while basketball is continuing to go on. I do want to do some of these MLB storylines. We always want to do a little baseball. We got baseball's our brand. Dad loves baseball. We all love baseball. So I guess I want to start with, and Dan, we'll start with you. Maybe you could set us up here, and we'll go to Dad because he hates the Mets. It's just are the Mets back from the dead? That's my question, Dan. You can set us up and give us your take on
that. Not really. I mean, I think they're at least within shouting distance, but you look at some of the teams they've been beating, and it's not really like they've been beating up on a murderer's row. I mean, their past few series, the Rockies, the Nationals, the Pirates, the Nationals again, and they they had a decent showing against the Yankees. I mean, winning those 2 games were good, but they then turn around, lose a series to the Astros. Prior to that, the teams they beat before that were the Rangers and the Cubs. I mean, they're not really doing it against the really strong teams. Like, other than that 2-game set with the Yankees, like, there really hasn't been a lot to get excited about with the Mets. Like, they're better than they were, and in the National League, that might actually be enough to get them into the playoffs, given how many mediocre teams are in the National League this season. But I'm really not impressed. Like, they might find their way to a 5 or 6 seed, but I'm really they're just kind of meh at this point.
Okay, Dan's hot take on the Mets is that they're meh. We're going to welcome in Trent Connor as well here. Trent is a writer for GodzillaWins.com. You can find all his writing both for his UFC DFS picks, which he does every Friday, as well as his MLB Power Rankings, which he does at the beginning of the week. So he's locked into the MLB. We'll get to him in a minute. Dad, I know you love the Mets and their gangster bankster owner, Steve Cohen, and all of his illustrious moves that he's made over the past couple years. Do you think the Mets are back? They're 49-47, 12 and a half games out of first place. What do you think, Dad?
Well, I mean, as far as the wild card is concerned, I mean, they're a game, but how many teams make it now, Dan? 3 teams?
3 wild card teams. Yep.
Yeah. So 3 teams. So they're tied for the wild card with Arizona. This is a team that was supposed to be in a rebuild. Pete Alonso's having another great season. I mean, they're piecing it together. And, you know, when you talk about beating teams that are not playing well, that's what you're supposed to do. If you're going to be a playoff team, you have to beat the bad teams. If you don't, you're just not going to make the playoffs, and you're not going to be a serious contender. The Mets are doing that. So, and, you know, it's interesting. If you look at the baseball draft, what Cohen did is he took a lot of kids, a lot of pitchers with injuries, with a lot of upside. And so, I mean, this is basically Cohen's philosophy. So, you know, that out of the first like 5 or 6 picks he had, 4 of these pitchers were down with arm injuries. He's gambling that you know, they get their Tommy John surgery, they get back, and then they make it. I was kind of shocked at the number, and I'll just segue here for a second, thinking back to the Mets. I was shocked at the number of pitchers that got drafted high that are out for the season. West Virginia, Aiden Major, getting Tommy John surgery, goes in the 5th round. Shocker. That's just one of many, many. But look, I think when a team is overperforming and playing winning baseball, especially look at them at the beginning of the season, right? They had that pitcher that they cut that threw his glove in the stands and said, I play for the worst effing team in the major leagues. Forget the guy's name. I mean, they've come a long way since then when they were a clown show. So I wouldn't count the Mets out. They continue to beat bad teams. Good for them. We'll see what happens. I think they got a hell of a shot. But I like the Pirates in this thing. I mean, if I'm betting a team to get in the wild card that's dangerous, it's going to be the Pirates. Half game out. They got a guy that you cannot beat in Skeens. So, you know, Pittsburgh's a young, fun team. They got a lot of guys hitting 190. Somehow they keep winning games. And, you know, they're a game over 500. And I didn't like adding the 3rd wild card. I didn't like adding the 2nd wild card. Now I love it because it's great for the fan base because you got so many of the teams in it that just would not be in. I mean, the Mets are 13 games out, season to be over. But instead you go to Shea Stadium or whatever it's called, Citibank Park or something.
City Field.
Citi Field. And you got a team that's like has a shot to make the playoffs. It makes it a lot more fun for the fans than sitting there 13 games out in August. And I've got a lot of experience.
Yeah. So here's my one thing about the 3 wild cards is that it's great for the fan bases, but we don't get as many like exciting blockbuster trades at the trade deadline. We still get some, of course, but because so many teams are quote unquote in it all the time, like sometimes I wish for those days when we didn't have as many wild cards and you'd get these like crazy trades at the trade deadline. They still happen. I get that, but it doesn't feel like as frequently because, you know, if you're a couple games out of that 3rd wild card, you're holding on to your assets and not just selling them all off, which is probably better for the game because, you know, then those teams are not, perpetually kind of in the doldrums. But it's always exciting when there's kind of a trade deadline thing. Trent, we're going to bring you in here now. You got the Pirates hat on there, so you can take that in any direction you want as far as their danger. And then also the Mets, is this a team that we can take seriously?
Yeah, to your point, if you asked me a month and a half, 2 months ago, I would have told you the Mets were going to be big sellers at the deadline. And then they went on a huge run in June, and now they're in the playoffs currently. But yeah, I agree with you, John. I think the Pirates are a playoff team this year. They just have to win some games against the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks, which they have a few. I think they have 6 against Diamondbacks, 7 against the Cardinals left on their schedule. So I mean, they kind of control their own destiny as far as the wild card goes.
I think we'll see with the Mets. I'm kind of interested to see how they do in the second half.
We'll find out about the Mets at the end of this month. After this series with the Marlins, they've got the Yankees, the Braves, and the Twins. Get through July with a winning record, and we'll talk. But for now, it's show me something more.
Dan says, show me something more. Let's move on to another topic here. We'll stay in New York. Everybody loves the Big Apple, I guess. So Judge keeps breaking records, keeps shattering expectations. Of course, he's one of the best players in the game. And the Yankees, I don't know. I mean, the storyline, and Dad, we'll start with you because you're always locked into the Yankees. The storyline is always that the Yankees are collapsing. We've heard that from a while now. They are losing, but it's not like they're still like in second place. I think maybe I could be wrong. Maybe they're in third now. They still have a winning record. So is it true that the Yankees are absolutely collapsing? And if so, are we just wasting Judge's career here?
Okay. I mean, all right, look, I hate the Yankees, right? So I laugh my ass off every night when they lose. I mean, to me, the trifecta of baseball is very simple. Astros win, Yankees lose, Correa goes 0 for 5. That's like my dream day. That's my trifecta every night. The only box score of any other team I check is the Twins, hopefully that Correa took the collar because I can't stand the guy. Other than that, but look, I mean, all this thing about the Yankees, I mean, they're game out, right? They're game out behind a very good team. They're 19 games over 500. Nobody's going to play like 750 baseball in today's game. That's how they started. They were playing 750 ball. Now they got some holes, but I mean, any fan out there, if you're a fan of any team and you were going to say, okay, one game after the All-Star break, your team is 19 games over 500 and 1 game out, would you take that? There's not a single person that would say no. We'd all take that. So let's put things in perspective here. They also didn't have Cole for a long time. I mean, he pitched another great game last night. But what's dangerous now about him is kind of like skis with Pittsburgh. Now they got a Cole going into the fall without the innings on his arm that he normally has. So do you want to face Cole in the first or 7th or 5th game of a playoff? I don't. So you don't want to face Skeens. You don't want to face – these are 2 guys you don't want to face, especially a Cole that's only going to have 120, 130 innings. Very, very tough. So, look, they had their little downfall. They won last night. They're a game out. I think the Yankees still are the team that I'd be the most – as an Astro fan, that's the only team in the AL that concerns me. We're gonna beat the Orioles again. Or this season. I'm not concerned about them, Boston, whatever, Cleveland, forget about it, right? I could care less. Seattle, forget it. Only team that concerns me going to the World Series again is New York. If we could get past them, I think it's going to be good. So if I'm a Yankee fan, get your panties out of a wad. You guys are 19 games up and a game out. You're going to make the playoffs, and you got right now the most dominant pitcher today in the American League. Not bad. And a guy, Aaron Judge, is going crazy. It's a good combo.
Impassioned defense of the Yankees from a Yankees hater there.
Yankee hater.
I always think this. You don't actually hate the Yankees. They're actually your second favorite team after the Astros, considering you grew up in Jersey. You just hate that they got away with more when the Astros got screwed with the cheating scandal.
Never a Yankee fan. Never a Mets fan. In fact, look, I hate all teams except mine. You know that. I hate them all. right? I like my team.
I think
In
you.
fact,
I think
hate
you like the Pirates
ballparks.
these days.
Well, yeah, I like the Pirates because it's
And the
skiing,
Royals.
so I could
Kind of
I could
Royals,
Yeah,
tolerate
you like the
Yeah.
I
Royals.
could tolerate the Pirates, right? Plus, we don't play them, so I could tolerate the Pirates. But everybody else, I hate. I hate their stadiums. I hate their beer. I hate their hot dogs. I hate their general managers. I hate every other team. And when our player gets traded and they go to another team, I hate him, except for George Springer because he stutters. Other than that, I hate them all.
You
Kind
also,
of like Yelich.
yeah, you love Christian Yelich.
So a stutter,
But he
a
was
stutter
not on
is
my-
something that you like. Interesting.
Yeah,
Well, because
Yeah,
I grew up with a severe stutter. I was in my 20s before I could answer the phone. So
Yeah.
Springer always will have a special place in my heart because the guy grew up with a severe stutter. He's been able to overcome it to the extent that I have, and he's been very successful. And he's not shy about getting interviewed. He still stutters today. I was fortunate to be able to overcome 95% of it. But I mean, when I was a kid, Jack knows when he grew up with me. I mean, I couldn't get my name out. I couldn't say anything. So it's tough. That's growing up with that is not easy, and he was able to overcome it, play ball, and he's a good man. He's a good ball player and a good guy.
yeah. I liken that to like having to have an interpreter because when you were younger and I was a kid, sometimes you'd have to bring me places and when you couldn't get a word out, it's like when it's your dad, what he's trying to say, and so you're
Sure.
you would just say, oh hey, Jack, can you help me? And you'd have to. It's kind of interesting, and Springer is definitely the same. You also like Garrett Cole. I don't care what you say. You're always talking about how Garrett Cole's like the most dominant pitcher you've ever seen. So let's get to Trent and then Dan. Trent, New York, like where are we here? Are we excited? Are we sad because they're collapsing? What's going on with New York?
I think as a Yankees fan, I wouldn't be too mad about having a slump right now because I wouldn't want to be slumping going into the postseason. Rather get it out of the way because I mean you're gonna have ups and downs in the season, and you have arguably the two best hitters in the American League in Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. So the real problem with them is Clay Holmes. He continues to kind of blow saves, lose games like the one they should have swept the Orioles going into the All-Star week, and he blew a save. They took 2 out of 3, but the pitching needs to be a little bit better out of the bullpen. The starters are doing their job, and the bullpen's not really coming through for him.
Dan,
so my question is he, as a Yankee fan, is Clay Holmes a legit closer in your mind, Trent?
No, I think he's more of a setup guy, Nathan. I mean, he has the stuff to be a closer, but he keeps choking. And if you do it in the regular season, you're definitely going to do it in the postseason.
Yeah, and that has been a big issue. I mean, one of the reasons, and we talked about this, Dan, last week with the Phillies, I believe it was last week we talked about it, where it's like, okay, one of the reasons the Phillies have been so dominant lately is because all of a sudden they figured out their bullpen. And, that was their big question mark for years and years. It was the reason, as Trent says, that they haven't been able to win a World Series in the last couple of years as well, because their bullpen is like an absolute disaster. You saw that in the World Series with the Astros, where they lost the World Series in a bullpen implosion. Now all of a sudden their bullpen's pitching well, and it gets very difficult in the postseason in today's game after Garrett Cole and a couple of those starters, where you have to be able to protect that lead. You can't always win games that way. It's one of the reasons the Royals were so successful in like 2015 with that amazing bullpen as well. So Trent's right about that. Before we move on to a couple other topics, and we're going to talk baseball a little bit into the 10 o'clock hour as well, guys, because as Nate informed me, the Park Tavares fight has been canceled. So Trent, what we'll do is we'll talk a little UFC with the main event, but we'll do some baseball at the top of the hour too. We'll just keep talking baseball. Okay. We all love we all love MLB. So Trent can stick around for some of that. Jay will join us as well too in a little bit. But before we do that, we got to talk a little bit about Beard Vet Coffee, because you can't go anywhere in the country without your Beard Vet Coffee. I know Dad just saw Kenny and Sean there at the Republican convention, saw some pictures of them at the convention. So Beard Vet Coffee, look, you go to www.beardvet.com. That's www.beardvet.com. You can get all sorts of different stuff. I talk about these guys all the time because I drink their product. I drink their coffee all the time. So I can talk about stuff that I love and use constantly, and that is Beard Vet Coffee. You can get the whole bean. You can get the fine ground. You can get the K-Cups. These are some incredible coffee. You with the promo code Godzilla, and that's the promo code you got to use at beardvet.com, promo code Godzilla, you just get that 10% off, boom, 10% off your coffee, and it gets to you in 3 days or less, at least for me anyway. And look, I live in the middle of nowhere. You want to talk about trying to ship something somewhere difficult in the United States, you can't get worse than rural Mississippi. The postman never shows up. I never get any mail on time. Shout out to the postman and my post guy. He's never showing up, though. I never get any mail. I send people postcards all the time. They never show up. I'm always trying to write people's letters. Those don't show up. You know, the one thing that does show up, it's Beard Vet coffee. Shows up like that, baby. It's just immediate. They make sure they get it to you. So you go to beardvet.com. That's beardvet.com. Promo code Godzilla. Get you 10% off all of your coffee needs. Shout out to Beard Vet. Go ahead and order some right now because you always need a little bit of coffee. Wakes you up in the day, gets you going, and they ship it to you quickly. I'm telling you, when they got the logistics figured out, it's Beard Vet and Amazon. That's the only two people I can ever order from, and it gets there. Everything else gets there in about 4.5 weeks for me out in the middle of nowhere. But that is my fault because I live where nobody else lives. It's just me and the armadillos. So, one of these days I'll leave the rural South and move somewhere where you can get mail. Okay, let's move on to some other topics here in
before we do, one stat to throw out on the Yankees. They've lost 7 of their past 8 series.
Oh, wow.
Not good.
So just the Orioles is the one.
That Orioles series is the only one they've won out of their past 8. So that's why people are worried.
Hey, can I give a shout out to Nate?
Go for it.
Hey, Nate. So I finally got out of Wisconsin where there's no betting online. So I had 2 weeks. I was dark, right? You can't do it, whatever's going on in that state. So I go to my DraftKings account today and I got all this money in it. I'm like, the hell did I bet? Right? Is that a mistake? Like, do I have Ann's account and not mine up? But no, I got all this money in it because I bet Nate's golf picks winners 2 weeks in a row right on this show. Nate gives out a golf winner both at 10-1. The first one I bet $25, so I won $250. Nice, Nate. Thank you. The next one, I bet, well, Nate's hot. I bet the other golfer, Davidson, or so I don't know who these people are. I forced him to give me a pick. He gives me Davidson at 10-1. I bet $50. I win $500. So Nate's won me $750 in 2 golf weeks. We give me 2 golf winners right in a row, Saturday and Saturday. So I just took 500. That's 700. I bet 500 on the Astros to win the World Series at 15-1. Gives me 8,000. So
good buy $500.
It's a free up playing with house money, right? Like, so thank you, Nate.
You just can't help yourself, baby. Like, and we're always trying to help you win.
We gave you free money, and then you just went ahead and burned it anyways.
Oh, because I think, look, they're in first place today. They got all their players. They had Tucker's out.
John,
back.
John, you could have gotten even more. You could have gotten even more free money if you didn't take a nap when I was giving out correct scores in soccer.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. We talked about that last week.
Though that's like I just want to hit the thing that says win the golf match. I just click that, and I got 10-1. I put 50. I went $500. I like that, Nate. Just give me the winner.
As Mitch said last week when you were like, I don't know how to bet that, he just said, you just click a button. And that's all you're doing. You're just clicking buttons here, whether it's correct score or whether it's a golf winner. You're just clicking a button. It's not that difficult. From somebody who has been gambling since like 1972, where it used to be a lot more difficult to put in a bet. I just can't believe that you can't get on the DraftKings and you can't, bet a correct score. But shout out to Dan because that's a couple correct scores. And just like this golf stuff, when you start heating up on those correct scores, it gets pretty tasty because those are some real winners. So shout out to both Dan and Nate for giving us a bunch of winners there. Nate's got a couple more golf winners today that he'll share at the next hour. So you have to, you got to stick around for that.
Teasing that,
got to stick around for that. At the end of the show, we'll give out a couple more for the Barracuda and the Open Championship. So it should be a lot of fun. Now, we'll get to the Astros in a minute because they have been winning, but we're just going to save that one for just a minute because I want to talk about the White Sox because they suck. And you can't always talk about teams that are good in baseball. Sometimes you have to talk about teams that just historically are awful. Dan, are the White Sox a historically awful team or are they just another bad team?
I think they're just another bad team. Like 27-72 certainly isn't great, but we're not talking 1962 Mets or 1899 Cleveland Spiders here by any means. Like they're quite weak. They don't do anything well, but historically awful is a bit of a stretch. Like this team will probably win like 50 games.
Well, they're in a classic rebuild now. I mean,
Yeah,
you
of course.
remember it was only a couple seasons ago, and maybe I think it was the season before COVID. I think they were in the playoffs. I remember the Astros beat them. They won a game, so I guess it was a 5-game series. Houston beat them 3-1. But it was a few years back. They were actually in the playoffs. They had good pitching. And last year, everybody thought they were going to be better because they had some really good frontline starters, and things fell apart. And now they're in a rebuild, and teams go through this. But I tell you what, while Jack's away, I want to get your comments on this. What do you think of the new way they're doing the draft with the lottery, like basketball? So, the Astros, we went through 3 straight 100+ losing seasons to stockpile all these number 1 draft picks, right? That made us the team that we are today, and all the pain went away, and now we're a semi-dynasty, and they're fun to watch. But now they got this draft where, the Indians are, what are they, the Gardens, right? They get the first pick. I mean, they almost made the playoffs last season. So what do you think about that? And then you get back to the White Sox, because you figure, okay, the White Sox are going to get, 50 wins, 60 wins. They should have the first pick. But then they have this lottery thing where all the teams that don't make the playoffs get a certain pick, like the NBA. What do you guys make of that?
I like it. I mean, I don't want to, excuse me. I don't want to reward losing. Like John, my world is soccer, where if you finish last, you don't get the top player in coming out of the youth leagues. You get to go play in the next level below. Like soccer, if we had that in baseball, the Astros would have been playing in AAA for a season or two.
So kind of an interesting thought on that, Dan. I think you're right as far as the relegation goes. It's not always important to reward losing. Now, Dad, I did have my headphones in, so I heard you try to hijack my segment as soon as I left for 2 seconds to be like, "Oh, let's just change the topic."
It's
something
a good
I want to
idea,
talk about.
but actually, I have something that I want to talk about more.
So appreciate that. I heard you try to hijack my segment, but now that we're on it, we'll talk about it for the next 3 minutes. I think that in baseball, because the sort of tanking that the Astros figured out how to do, and
the Orioles too,
and the Orioles and the Braves. Remember, the Braves were awful for a couple years before they became contenders. I do think that Major League Baseball probably wants to discourage that a little bit by using some of this lottery. So I'm kind of all for that. But with baseball, you still have to draft well. I saw a graphic, and over the last 10 years, the team that has produced the most big league talent out of just drafting has been the Astros. And the Astros haven't for 10 years been the number 1 pick or the number 4 pick or whatever. They have also drafted really well. And even in Major League Baseball is funny because it's not always a guarantee that even the first overall pick is going to pan out like Skeens or Strasburg or Harper. A lot of times those guys get hurt. They don't make it out of the minor leagues. They have just a cup of coffee. So you do still have to draft well, regardless of where your spot is. But I think you're right, Dad, that there is, and Dan, that we shouldn't always be rewarding this type of losing, where it's like you're choreographing a awful couple years in order to draft the best players as much as you can. Do it like basketball. But then basketball's annoying too, because the Spurs were bad for like 2 years, and they get the greatest player like ever in their lottery. So I'm not always a fan of the lottery either. We'll talk about some more baseball here in a minute, a little bit of Astros talk. Then we're going to do some UFC and golf with Jay Delsing. Should be a lot of fun. Don't turn the dial because it's 10 o'clock now. We got 1 more hour left of the Godzilla Wins Pick Show here on July 20th. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
listening to Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network. For a deeper dive without the jive, visit the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Let's get back to the show with the guys in the know, John, Jack, and Nate. It's Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Welcome back to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. You're here listening to our discussion of Major League Baseball, talking a little bit about the MLB draft. We're here with John Fredericks, senior contributors to GodzillaWins.com, Nate Perry, Dan Angel, and Trent Connor, who's been with us for a long time now. Love having Trent's work up on the site. He does a great job for us. Dan, let's continue this talk about the draft now that we're on it. You brought up a good point in our little chat here. So tell listeners kind of how the salary cap plays into this a little bit.
So, excuse me. So yeah, there's the fact that baseball is the one sport that doesn't have a salary cap at all. So in football, if you go through this tear down to the studs, like you can get pretty decent in a year's time. You get a top quarterback in the draft, you pick up a few guys in free agency, and suddenly you're competitive again. And in baseball, you can't really do that because free agency is a lot tougher when there's no salary cap. Teams like the Yankees can just outbid for whoever's going to come available, or the Dodgers or somebody else with money. So it takes a long time for teams to get decent when they do this. And you're looking at 2 to 3 wasted summers for these fans where on opening day that you're seeing your team before it's mathematically eliminated from the postseason, and that's it. There's no hope whatsoever. And baseball is just like, the season lasts so long that it's just painful to do that to your fans for multiple years at a time. So yeah, this lottery system discourages that, and I am all for that.
Trent, as a Pirates fan, how do you feel about this? Because, I mean, that's a team that I think they don't exactly blow it up all the time, but, I mean, they definitely don't always put a winning product on the field. Would the lottery have helped the Pirates in the future, maybe disincentivize some of those trades that they've made that have been sort of baffling?
Yeah, you got to think that it's going to definitely going to curb tanking. And as far as the Pirates go, you have Garrett Cole, Jason Bay, even longer. What are they going to do with Paul Skeens now that they don't have the greatest chances of getting first overall pick anymore? You got to think, and Jared Jones for that matter, they got 2 really young pitchers that are, pretty dominant already. You got to think they're going to keep them and try and build around them, especially with Tamar Johnson, Key Brian Hayes. They got a lot of young pieces in their system.
If the Pirates don't offer an offensive amount of money, like the GDP of France, to Paul Skeens, then everyone in Pittsburgh should just be furious. I don't care. Maybe he doesn't take the offer at some point. Maybe he doesn't.
Someone offers him the GDP of Germany instead.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Somebody offered,
What, 2.7 trillion isn't enough, Nate?
Yeah, that's not enough.
I'd rather have 3 if I'm his agent.
Maybe
I'll take anything trillion. Come on.
Yeah, maybe Live Golf offers him $1 bazillion, whatever. If you're the Pirates, you cannot let this guy walk without at least giving it the best try that you can, because this guy is astronomically just a game changer as far as for the city, for the franchise, for the game of baseball. What he has been able to do, LSU, the first round pick, starting the All-Star game, dominance in the MLB. If he gets the Pirates just this year, and I know they have a good team, but just this year to the NLDS or the NLCS, Dad, you have to assume that the Pirates, they can't do what they've always done. This Paul Skeens has to be different, right?
That's going to rip the city apart. Just living in Pittsburgh, I'm not a Pirates fan, but you live there. You get the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I follow them. I follow the Penguins. That's the only game in town. it would rip the city apart. And I'll tell you, Trent, an interesting story. And I forget the time frame because I'm getting older, but it was somewhere in the 90s. When did Gingrich take over? 94, right? 94.
Yeah,
Like
around there.
95. That's how I remember things. 95, 96. Anyway, I'm with a newspaper company called McClatchy Newspapers. My boss was Kevin McClatchy.
Oh, boy.
Best boss I ever had. Love the guy to death. Great part of the McClatchy family. And he decides to leave. He was a senior executive or chief operating officer or something. He decides to leave, and he puts a consortium together, and he buys the Pirates. A super baseball fan. Tried to buy the A's, couldn't put it together, got a deal, bought the Pirates. And actually tried to get me to go out there with him. I didn't want to go because I'm not a Pirates fan, and it just didn't feel good to me. So I did that job. He told me in the interview, what are you doing? Pittsburgh, you have no vision. This 96 when he purchased the team. He said, my vision is to sign long-term contracts to our draftees because that's the only way we're going to afford with our budget in a small market team in order to build a contender. So we got to take risks with young players coming right out of the draft, 8 years, 10 years, 7 years. If they go down, we're going to have to eat it because once they hit free agency, I'm never going to have the money in order to compete. This kid was a visionary. So a kid, whatever, he was in his early 40s back then. But Kevin McClatchy was a visionary. And he had this thing figured out years ago. Get him.
Cleveland beat him to it.
I mean, he was brilliant. And
that was Cleveland's strategy 5 years before he ever put the funds together to buy the Pirates.
Yeah, Cleveland, but I mean that when you have a small market team, I mean that's what you have to do. And he did that with some of his younger players. A couple of them didn't work out, and then he got criticized for that.
I know, but
the only way for them to
stretch. Because Cleveland already did it, and Montreal did it in the 80s.
Yeah, but
well, I'm just saying that McClatchy did it, Dan. Good for him. Okay, I'm just saying that was his vision, and so he said, when I draft them, if our scouting team thinks they got a future, we're going to draft and give them the signing bonus, and then sign them up for 10.
Right,
and that way we can keep them, and so it's not a bad strategy. That's all.
Yeah. He also built PNC Park, which, gorgeous ballpark. Always a lot of fun to go there.
Sure. As we talk about this, I just have like one sort of thought that I keep thinking about that we haven't really discussed in terms of like draft and like teams tanking or whatever. Is like we talk about, the Astros did it, they tanked and built up their farm system, but like a farm system isn't really like a reliable indicator of future success in Major League Baseball. Like, and I think that's like the one thing that like, we keep talking about like trying to prevent teams from tanking to like stockpile these draft picks. But like the White Sox have been bad since like 2019 and they had a great farm system in 2019.
John was right. They won a division title. They won 93 games 2 years ago.
And now they're bad again. So,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. But I mean, I guess it's just like, it just doesn't like, I just don't see like, like it's not like you can just tank forever and then become like this dynastic franchise. Like Houston seems to be like an exception, not like the rule.
Yeah. Well, because Houston has an intelligent front office. So, like it's very easy to screw up this strategy. I mean, switching sports, look at the Buffalo Sabres. They've been bad for very, very long. Like, they haven't competed in over a decade, and they had some generational talents. They drafted Jack Eichel, and they watched him win a Stanley Cup with Vegas.
Yeah,
but Nate, we also, as an Astro fan, and Jack and you we also went through 3 years of losing 110 games.
Right.
3 consecutive years. I mean, you couldn't. After you got to the middle of May, the season was over. And they had
some of this just feels like,
horrible.
like
I mean,
the psychology of a sports fan.
You have to put a fan base. You got to put a fan base through 3 years of losing 100 games and being made fun of. ESPN would make fun of them.
Sure.
And so yes, I mean, we were able to build a dynasty, but during those 3 years, Jack knows it was painful stuff, man. And so, as far as an Astro fan, we paid the price, but losing 100 games a year for 3 consecutive years, that's not easy to do. That's tough to do. It's
well, painful. I mean, the thing with the Astros, Dan's right. They do have a good front office. Crane, whatever you think of him, has been a pretty solid owner and has made a lot of pretty good decisions within that time frame. They've also, been through a cheating scandal and all sorts of stuff. And they drafted Jose Altuve before they started tanking. And that just, I mean, to me, Jose Altuve is one of those guys that is sort of a franchise changer. Everybody else can come and go, but he's like a Paul Skeens, in my opinion. And Paul Skeens is probably more of a franchise changer than someone like Jose Altuve. But I mean, like that wasn't because of the tanking. It was just because they signed a guy who at 16 years old, everybody overlooked because he was so short, and has turned out to be one of the most dynamic hitters in the game. And because of that, people want to play with him and they want to play for Houston. But Dan's right about that as well. Dad, before we move on, though, I want you to tell us a little bit about MyPillow and how people can get involved in the MyPillow products, which are so incredible. Then we'll do a little bit of UFC, bring in Jay, do some golf.
All right. Right now, Mike Lindell's got a super deal on the mattress topper. Like, I got a mattress topper right here in my Mega bus. Slept here last night, slept like a baby. Now, these things, sometimes you look at the mattress topper, you're like, it's a whatever. He's got a great deal on them right now, $199. You're not going to beat this. Doesn't matter what your mattress is. You put this baby on it, you wrap it up. I mean, it's like sleeping on air. This thing is one of the best things he's got. But all of their products, I got this whole RV is outfitted all with MyPillow stuff. Got the MyPillows, got the comforters, got the mattress topper, got the towels, got the hand towels, got the whole thing all right here. Got my slippers on, right? Still $25. Great deals. Now, the thing is, Mike Lindell, this is why the prices and the products are so good. There's no middleman. He's been debanked. He's been deplatformed. He's been D'd everything. If just think of DE, he's that. Mr. D. In fact, I saw him at the convention, and he says, I'm now got my own bank, Bank of Lindell. What the hell's a Bank of Lindell? He says, because now I'm on a cash-only basis. Everybody's cut me off. Nobody will do business with me except my consumers, my buyers like you listening here, and I'm passing all the savings on to them. I have no cost of credit. Everything is a cash basis. No 60 days cash. They send me the product. Therefore, you get the tremendous savings. This is a great deal for us. Just go to mypillow.com/Godzilla, promo code Godzilla. Got free shipping. It ends today. This is it for free shipping. Go to mypillow.com/Godzilla, promo code Godzilla. Bank of Lindell, cash and carry, baby. No banks, no finance fees, all the savings. Guess where it goes? To us. Check this out. Promo code Godzilla. You're going to get all the good deals right there, mypillow.com.
So when I go to MyPillow, do I just have to send him an envelope of cash and then he just sends me back the pillow?
He's got to buy the product, dude. He's got to buy the product. That's all you got to do. He's got to cash. It's like there's a cash business. He's just got to buy the price. Been debanked. He can't get any credit. Everybody's cutting him up. They have tried every which way to put this guy out of business, right? You know why they can't put him out of business? Because he has great products at great prices. That's why. It's a simple capitalism, right? Anything that's on that site is a phenomenal product.
Certainly a better price than
he can't kill his company.
Certainly a better price than Jack willing to offer Paul Skeens on the state of Pennsylvania, the franchise, and another $500 billion.
Nobody's ever going to accuse me of being a smart businessman. That's not my game. Never has been. But yeah, Mike Lindell, shout out there. MyPillow. Go ahead, Nate. You can send him some cash, and he'll send you some pillows. He's like the Rocky of the.
He's a great guy.
The Rocky.
That's the other thing. He's a great guy.
Yeah, the Rocky Balboa of the pillow industry. No, but nothing.
He really is a great guy.
Never.
I saw him at the convention. Ann and I were there. I mean, all the things the guy's gone through. You know, they're trying to take his company, and he's just laughing, smiling, loving. Yeah. You know, hugging us up. He's just a great guy and a great friend, and salt of the earth. And he's been through a lot: gambling addiction, cocaine. I mean, this guy, if you talk about hitting bottom and coming back, kind of like, you know, me and mom there, just hitting bottom and coming back. People that have gone through that, there's a kindred spirit. He's just a salt of the earth. Great guy. Great product at a great price.
Yeah, he's pretty open about his struggles with drug addiction. That's for sure.
And gambling.
Yeah. Interesting that he supports this show. Okay, so let's move on before we get too off the rails here. Okay, Trent, we're going to move on to a little bit of the UFC stuff. Now, initially I said, okay, well, we'll do 20, 25 minutes of the UFC 94, always fun. But then the Tavares Park fight is canceled, and that, to be honest with you, Trent, was about all I had prepared for. Was these two fights. So I didn't really have an ability to just kind of switch to another fight. I know you can, but Trent, we got the main event. We got about 4 or 5 minutes. We'll just do a little bit. We're just giving out some picks here for UFC. Always fun. Everybody loves, firing up DraftKings if you have it in a state that's legal, doing a little UFC betting. So the main event at Vegas 94 is Lemos versus Jana Droba. So Trent, tell us a little bit here about just set us up for Lemos, Jana Droba, and some of your best picks here.
Okay, so Amanda Lemos is primarily a striker, and had she come into this fight before her last fight where she beat Mackenzie Dern, she would have been probably plus 250 against Jane Jiroba. But she really displayed some great grappling against Mackenzie Dern, actually landed 2 takedowns, had 4 minutes of control time, in which is going to come in handy against Jane Jiroba, who is primarily a wrestler, grappler, but she's not active when she gets these takedowns, and I think that's what kind of even the line on this fight. Jane Jiroba, I mean, she gets takedowns, but she doesn't do anything with them, and now with Amanda Lemos showing that she can grapple and she can wrestle, I think there's going to be a pretty close fight as far as betting goes. I would say it's hard to tell because the judging has been really inconsistent this year. And I think this is definitely going the full distance. If you want to take that, that is probably heavily favored to go the distance. Well, no, it's plus 130 to go the distance. So that's I like that bet for sure.
Yeah, Trent, I love the go in the distance bet there because watching both Lemos and Jana Jiroba, one of the things is they struggle, as you say, with finishing. They just don't ever seem like either of them have kind of like this killer instinct where once they feel like their opponent is kind of, struggling around the mat, that they kind of attack. A lot of times you just, like with Lemos especially, and I know she's improved her grappling, but I've spent a lot of time watching her being like, man, like this is like, I mean, she's a good fighter, but where's that killer instinct? Where can she just kind of finish these women sometimes? So I like that going the distance. Go ahead.
I would say Lemos has the most finishing upside in this fight, just because if she can defend a takedown, Jane Jiroba is not the best striker in the world, and Lemos is a very talented striker, but she's just not at the top tier. But I just see Jane Jiroba laying on her for probably a couple rounds. Lemos is going to have her fair share of moments in this fight. I'm still kind of back and forth on this fight. I think I'd go Jane Jiroba if I had to pick a side, but like I said, the judging is so inconsistent. I mean, if you have 10 minutes of control time, you're not guaranteed to win a decision nowadays, especially if you don't do anything with it.
Yeah, it's been pretty inconsistent, like you say, all season. It's been kind of stressful to watch. Nate, bring in here. I know you're always locked in the UFC. Lemos, Jane Jiroba. Do you like the go into distance? You like Jane Jiroba? If you go to GodzillaWins.com, you've got Manpreet's main pick. He likes Jane Jiroba as well. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm on the bandwagon in terms of liking Jane Jiroba. I mean, there's certainly stuff to like if you're a Lemos fan. I mean, she's bigger, she's taller, reaches longer, she's a more explosive striker. The finishing upside is there for Lemos as a striker, where it's not really for Jane Jiroba. Jane Jiroba tends to be more cautious. She doesn't throw as many punches. She doesn't throw as much power. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, it feels like, like if Lemos has the grappling figured out, she has more tools to win. The problem, I guess, is that we've never seen like a solid, like full gas tank from Lemos in these championship fights. Yeah. It seems like she sort of wears out in the third or fourth round. it's been a while since Jandiroba's fought a 5-round fight. I think it's been 6 years. And neither of these women are young. I mean, that's worth noting too. They're both 36, and I think Jandiroba's 37 and Lemos is 36. So they're not like young for fighters. So conditioning could be a problem for both of them. I'm more inclined to like Jandiroba just because she can go the full 5 more confidently, I think. I think that ultimately, that Trent's probably right in that this is probably going to be a frustrating fight for UFC fans. Jandiroba is going to try and take her down. Lemos has some defensive flaws in her grappling that can be sort of exploited. They were exploited when she fought Zhang Weilei. And I think that it's probably just going to be a lot of like what Trent said, like Jandiroba is just going to lay on her and just roll around on the mat, and UFC fans are going to be pissed, and then it's going to go to a decision, and maybe Jandiroba squeezes it out just because she spends so much time in control. But again, it's going to be really close. I think that going the distance, any sort of over bets you want to make over 3.5 rounds are fine. Jandiroba will probably get stronger as the fight goes on. If Lemos wins the first round, I'd be more inclined to take Jandiroba at a plus price probably moving forward if you're just live betting it. But yeah, I think that Trent pretty much had that nailed, and Manpreet as well on the website.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very difficult if you're live betting to find Jandiroba at plus money. Try to get as close to you can as even. Take it if you like her. I think she's the favorite for a reason. But as Trent said, the judging has been really inconsistent this year. So it's, if you feel like this is going to go the distance and you like Jandiroba, I'd probably just do the overs. I'd probably just do the go in the distance, because you just never know what's going to happen at the judges table this year if they do go the distance. Otherwise, if you don't think that's going to happen, then start looking at some of those prompts where Jandiroba, can submit or something. But I like the go in the distance. I like the idea that you're getting plus money on that, Trent. I was assuming that was also going to be minus money. So plus 130 is pretty good for going the distance. Anything over 3.5 rounds would be really nice for that main event fight. I like Lemos. I watch her and I like what I see, but I'm not sure that this is her fight. And I don't necessarily every time I bet her, I don't exactly come away with any money. So I wouldn't say that I'm super excited about the idea of doing it again.
And I think the refereeing's could come into play in this fight, especially if Jandiroba's being inactive with top position. I mean, if the ref starts standing him up, I think Lemos becomes a good live bet, because she definitely has the better striking. Jandiroba lands only. She's got 38% striking accuracy. That's bottom tier as far as women's straw weight goes.
Yeah, and depending on who the ref is, I'm not sure who it is.
Yeah, I was trying to find it here. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a couple of them who they won't tolerate just rolling around on the mat. They'll get them up if they feel like they're just sitting there waiting for the time.
Especially in a 5-round fight.
Yeah, they'll get them up. They'll make them bang if they have to bang around, with their fists, obviously. Okay, let's
in the apex too, so it's a little smaller, so it lends itself to a little bit more grappling.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Trent, want to thank you for coming on here, doing a little baseball, doing a little UFC. You can find all Trent's writing at GodzillaWins.com. You go to GodzillaWins.com. You find his UFC DFS picks. He's got some good ones. Today, if you like to do those DFS lineups, which you can do in a lot of states where you can't get the actual money line bets and stuff like that. And you can find his power rankings every week. Dad, I know Dad looks at the power rankings every week to see where the Astros are. They keep climbing up, Dad. One of these days, they're going to break the top 10. We'll see that here pretty soon, I think, Trent. So, Trent, thanks for coming on. Love all the work you do.
Thanks, Trent.
And we'll catch you later. We're going to do a little bit of golf in a minute, but, one of the things about these UFC guys is that when you're talking about UFC and fighting, you're talking about swelling, and there is nothing that fights this swelling like Native Pass Antarctic krill oil. I got to tell you, this stuff is the best, because the side effects from taking ibuprofen are just too much to risk here. It's only temporary pain relief from ibuprofen. It's masking the true problem. The true problem is always inflammation, and you have to be able to battle inflammation in a couple different ways. Ibuprofen is a Band-Aid. You got to have it sometimes, but it is not a solution to your pain. Right now, you can go to getnativepath.com. That's getnativepath.com. GETNATIVEPATH, getnativepath /Godzilla wins. Now you have to use the whole Godzilla wins because we have 2 promos. Dad knows all about this because on Monday through Friday, he talks a lot about the effects of the collagen product from Native Path. So if you go to getnativepath /Godzilla, which I know a lot of our promo codes are Godzilla, that's going to lead you to the collagen product. There's a difference there. You got to go to getnativepath.com /Godzilla wins, the whole website, GODZILLAWINS, Godzilla wins. That will lead you to the Antarctic krill oil. And you can learn a lot more about the benefits of Native Path's Antarctic krill oil at getnativepath.com /Godzilla wins. That's why their researchers are saying that this Antarctic super nutrient you should add to your diet. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids, but not just any form of omega-3. These omega-3 are sourced from wild-caught krill, and they have shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. Better yet, for a limited time, you can use that link to get Antarctic krill for $23 a bottle, just $23 a bottle there. That is a steal. So what you do is you go to getnativepath.com, GETNATIVEPATH.com /Godzilla wins, the whole website name, GODZILLA wins, WINS, and you'll see the Antarctic krill right there. It'll tell you all about how you can reduce that inflammation and that swelling with Antarctic krill, and you can easily navigate to the page where you can buy Antarctic krill for $23 a bottle. Absolute steal. Everybody should be doing it right now. Terrific product. We want to thank Native Path for partnering with us and are excited to have them here. Okay. I thought we'd have Jay Delson come in and talk some golf. We don't have him today. So we're still going to do a little bit of golf because we got the Open Championship, and Jay may end up coming in. Sometimes technology, difficulty, stuff like that. We got to give Dad some winners, both for the Barracuda and the Open. But Dan and Dad, I know you guys are sticking around for this and are not always as locked into golf. So we may do maybe like 15 to 20 minutes of golf and then switch at the end to something else. Maybe we go back to some of the baseball stuff and just end with that because just without Jay, it just becomes the Jack and Nate show. And while we all love listening to Jack and Nate talk, we can only do it for about 15 minutes until I want to quit. So if I get tired of hearing myself talk, I love Nate, but Jay adds a little bit more flavor to the conversation. maybe he'll show up. We'll see. This radio business, Dad, as you know, with technology, it's just sometimes tough to be able to get on all the time. But Nate, let's talk about the Barracuda first. I threw that on the schedule, 1, because it's July and there's nothing else to talk about, and 2, because it's in Reno. So we've both been able to attend that tournament. You used to work that tournament as a volunteer sometimes. Just very, pretty quickly, what do you see in the Barracuda that you like, and who can? Dad's got to get a pin because you got to give him his winner for the Barracuda Championship here. Who do you like?
Yeah, so the Barracuda is a fun tournament. It's a little bit different as far as PGA Tour events go. If you look at the scoreboard, you're going to see a bunch of plus numbers. That's because they do a scoring system. So rather than being relative to par, you get points based on the score you make. So for instance, an eagle's worth 5 points, a birdie's worth 2 points, a par is worth 0 points. You get a double bogey or worse, that's -3. So you're really looking to accumulate points. It encourages guys to be aggressive because a birdie is worth 2 points while a par is worth 0 and a bogey is only -1. So really you want to lean on the birdies because the bogeys just aren't as penal as the upside of birdies. We've talked about that with Jay before. He's sort of said something similar just generally in scoring. But it can really create some excitement in Truckee because eagles are worth 5, and if, God forbid, somebody makes a double eagle, they get 8 points, and then they're climbing up the leaderboard in a hurry. So it's fun from that perspective. It's exciting. There's almost always going to be a guy that shoots like a zillion under par on Sunday that comes out of the clouds to win this tournament. Not least because like most of the guys that are playing here, this is an alternate field event. All the guys playing here weren't qualified for the Open Championship. Most of them are trying to sort of gain some points for FedEx rankings. So you're getting a look at a lot of young guys, a lot of sort of struggling journeyman pros. and the whole thing can kind of, get really exciting really quickly. It's also, it's just a unique tournament. We had story time on the thing here, and I'll tell a quick story about watching this in 2015. Because it's stable for the worst score you can take is a double bogey, and then you just pick up the ball and move on, -3 points. I watched a guy break his hand on the 12th hole there once, Andres Romero in 2015, broke his hand punching a sign. 45 minutes. There are paramedics out there, his managers out there, his personal trainers out there, caddies out there. Players are all just standing around. Nobody knows what to do. They're just waving groups through like it's like a municipal golf course. Just come on through. Just play through us. Finally, after about 40 minutes, they get his hand bandaged up, and he just tees it up and then just putts it off with one hand to collect his points because he had already made the cut, and he needed the last place finish to secure some FedEx Cup points. So he just putted it off the tee box and then just picked his ball up, put it in his pocket, and just walked to the next tee while everyone was playing. And he did that for 7 holes. I've never seen anything like it in a golf tournament. I don't think it's ever happened again. But he just really needed, he's like having like hard talks with his manager, being like, I can't play. And they're like, well, you better figure it out, dude. And he kind of did. And then he withdrew the next day. So that's a fun thing that can happen in Stableford, is that you can basically be like an invalid and still get points and still finish your round. For this tournament, because like I said, it's a lot of younger guys. If I'm looking for a winner, the one that I kind of had circled before the tournament started, who's been playing excellent, is Mac Meisner. He's currently leading by 1 point. He's a guy that's looked like he's going to break out for a while to me. He had a pretty good Corn Ferry season last year. And now he's in the lead. He's still plus 500 for betting purposes. He's coming off 2 top 20 finishes the last couple of weeks. It feels like, for me, looking at this, like Meisner's not the worst bet at plus 500, given where he is on the leaderboard and given the relative dearth of talent that's chasing him and sort of dearth of closers that are chasing him. We watched an alternate field last week that went to a 5-man playoff, and it went to a 5-man playoff in large part because all of the guys playing it in that alternate field event, again, weren't qualified for the premier event for the tour that week, which is the Scottish Open. And they all looked more or less like they sort of forgot how to play good golf at the end of the tournament. Guys were just totally falling apart. It gets to the 5-man playoff, and it was just a disaster. The first hole, 1 of 5 hits the fairway in the playoff, and it's just like total chaos from there. It ended up finishing because Harry Hall chips in from about 40 feet and wins with a birdie when everyone else missed the green on a par 3. So, weird things happen, but I think Mac Meisner in the lead here, like I said, given that guys are not really seeming to show a lot of closing capabilities in these, seems like a pretty solid bet at 5-1. If I was going to go down the board, I probably wouldn't go much lower than someone like Rico Ahoe, who's 11-1, I believe, right now. He's had a couple really good tournaments. He was T2. He made it to the playoff last week and finished in a tie for second. He's looked like a guy that's going to pop soon with the putting turning around. So probably Rico Hoey and Meisner would be my picks for the Barracuda if I were just sort of shooting from the hip and trying to give John another winner. But they're not, quite as sexy as maybe the Open Championship picks would be.
And we'll talk about the Open in a minute. You're telling me he punched a sign? Let's go back to that. What did he do?
Yeah. Well, he just kind of tomahawked it on top of like one of the signs that just say like, this is the 13th hole and it's a 205-yard par 3. He had 3 putted the previous hole and he was just pissed off, and he just like walked past it as he was like going to the tee box and just sort of like overhand chopped it and then broke his finger on it. And then, they called like EMTs because it's a golf tournament. So there's like EMTs everywhere for people like going down from like heat stroke. Yeah. So like the EMTs like respond in their golf cart with like the little flashing lights. And they're like trying to tape him up. The trainer's out there, his manager's out there, his agent, like, because he's an international player, Andres Romero was at that time. And he was like relatively like, good at that particular moment in his career. It's like, they travel with like this huge entourage. So it's just like a million people. And then it's like, I remember this was when Will Wilcox was having a really good PGA Tour season. Now he's a caddy for Sung J M. And I remember just watching him on the tee box. Like, he was already frustrated by how slow the play was. And then Andres Romero breaks his hand, and it looked like Will Wilcox wanted to walk off the golf course before Andres Romero. Like, he was ready to just call it a day. He was ready to just pack it in. He's like, we're done. We are done. And then Andres Romero just kept playing with the putter for the rest of the round.
So we're going to welcome in Jay Delsing here, coming to us live to talk a little bit about the Open. Looks like we got our times crossed up, Jay. That was my bad. Just didn't clear that up with you. But you're here now, and so we're excited to have you. Nate was talking a little bit about the Barracuda in Reno before we get to the Open. I know Dad's already written down Mac Meisner plus 500 since Nate's on an absolute heater with his wins. Dad's gonna win a little bit more plus 500.
Well, for the Open, on DraftKings, it's just popped up. I got a 25% profit boost, not on the Barracuda, on the Open. So you give me the win again, I get another 25% profit boost. I'm fired up.
And then you
Nate, what the hell's going on, man? You are on fire.
That's because I follow.
Nate's on fire.
Perry's picks. We should have a new segment. Perry's picks.
Yeah,
man,
he's on fire. You know, he was on fire at the golf course too, shooting in the low 60s. And then what happened, Nate? You had a little bit too much to drink.
Came back to earth a little bit. Yeah.
Had a couple.
Was it 81 last week?
I thought maybe the cart girl maybe had a couple too many at the turn.
Unfortunately, it wasn't anything that fun. It was just a hard day out there,
Just golf. Yeah.
Yeah, you know how it goes, Jay. One day the driver's good, and the other day, next time, you're just living in the trees. You look down at your
hands and like, whose hands are these? These do not belong to me. Yeah, terrible.
I don't know where they are anywhere. They just exist.
Jay, before we get into the Open, we're glad to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about your show, Golf with Jay Delsing, and where people can listen to it.
Well, thank you. Glad to be on with you guys again. Golf with Jay Delsing is on the John Fredericks Media Network. We're 11 to 12 on Saturday and Sunday. JDelsingGolf.com is my website. At Jay Delsing for Twitter and LinkedIn, Instagram. I have a YouTube page, a YouTube channel. But we've got Tom Watson on the show this week, you guys. He won 5 British Open championships and Hall of Famer. Just really interesting story how Jack Nicklaus called Tom Watson the best bad weather player he's ever seen. And Tom said a lot of it had to do with growing up in Kansas City. I mean, he's like, we just went out and played golf when it was snowing. It's no big deal. So, yeah, it's really, really super fun. I love being a part of what you guys are doing. And I got to get down with Nate on these picks, man. I don't know how. I think I picked like 3 winners in 2 years. It is not easy.
I think that's all I've done. It just happened to be the last 2 weeks when John's been writing the picks.
And John's on it.
It's all a sense of timing.
Yeah, it's just pure.
Yeah, well,
luck.
that's one thing with Dad. He can get a little lucky with some of these bets. So we'll keep getting him some wins, considering he threw most of his winnings on the Astros to win the World Series. So now we gotta get his bank back up there a little bit.
House money, baby.
That's
500
right.
Gets me 8,000. Not a bad deal when I'm playing with their money because of Nate.
That's right. Well, we'll see. And the Astros they have just as much shot as anybody. So after Godzilla wins, if you're listening right now on the radio, as soon as this ends, it'll go straight to Golf with Jay Delsing. Tom Watson, absolute legend, one of the greatest golfers of all time. So if you're a golf fan, definitely tune in, or you can go to his website, find the podcast, or you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. I mean, if you love golf, don't miss the Tom Watson interview, baby. Now, let's get to the Open Championship here a little bit. Jay, we'll start with you. From the first 2 days, Shane Lowry's ahead. We'll see. He's probably ahead a little too much for the Open. Probably going to end up coming back down to earth a little bit. We'll talk about that. But he's been playing some good golf. Played good golf yesterday. Do you like Shane's game right now? Obviously, he's a major champion. He's a good golfer. Are there some other guys that you're looking forward to watching the next 2 days as well? Well, I guess it's probably going on right now. So the next day and a half.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Lowry's won the Open Championship before, and he won going away. He won by, I think, 5 or 6 strokes. So this isn't unusual territory for him. What I was surprised at, his form has been okay. It hasn't been all that great. His putter has been awful. for most of this year. And then, you know, he got paired with Rory down at Zurich, and they won that team championship, and things started trending in a much better direction. So, you know, the biggest thing to happen for me, guys, is when you tee off. So they're going to tee off this afternoon at 3:00 or 3:40. You know, because the time in the summer months over there, it is light till midnight or so past. So these late tee times are really prime time for over there. It's going to be interesting to see what the weather does, because I've been watching it all morning, and old like I am, you don't sleep that well. So you roll up at 5:30 and I turn golf on. And so then I never go back to sleep. But it's interesting because it's rained. The wind hasn't really picked up, but you saw the difference. Guys, last time they were at Royal Troon, the draw, as they call it, whether you're in the early on Thursday and then late on Friday, or early Friday, late, whatever it is, it was one of the most lopsided draws in the history of golf, of our sport, where Phil Mickelson and Henrik Stenson were on the good side of the draw, and 85% of the guys that made the cut came from that way. Only 15% of the, which is so telling over there. So the weather's the big thing. Right now it's a little rainy and not much wind, and the scores are low. You've already seen 5 under pars in the house. There's what's his name, Thorsten. He's like 7 under par after 12 holes. So it's really gettable, and it changes the complexion of that event completely. All of a sudden, you know, you get guys that went out. Look at what Justin Thomas has been doing, guys. He opens with 68 and 3 under and in like third place, then shoots 45 on the front 9 yesterday. 45, and then 31 on the back. I mean, he's all over the place. Then he was 6 under par today through 13 holes, and now he's making bogeys. So, but this softening of the course and the lack of wind brings a lot more players into the mix here. So the Morikawas and some of the Schefflers and some of those guys, when the weather's bad and you give a guy a 2 or 3 stroke lead, it's hard. He's got to come back to you, because you're not going to make that many birdies. That's not the case today. There are birdies everywhere this morning.
Jay, what really makes somebody a good links style golfer? Like if you're looking at someone to take as a longer shot for this weekend, what kind of players should you look for?
Look for the Europeans, guys. When in my generation, the Europeans killed it at Augusta, because there was no rough and they could keep the ball along the ground, and they all grew up playing that way. But those guys didn't do worth a damn in the U.S. Open, where the grass was this high and they had to hit those high soft shots. That's not exactly the case anymore. But look for these guys. I'm really interested to see what Brown does today. I've never even heard of this guy. He's ranked just under the top 300 in the world. But you look at his golf swing and you're like, damn, that's a good golf swing. And he didn't seem to be too affected the first 2 days, but it'll be on today. He'll be nervous as all hell playing in the last group with Shane Lowry. But Dan, your question is great. You got to look for the guys that have played a lot of European style golf. And then when it rains and if it starts getting a little windy and dicey, it's usually the non-Americans the Americans don't prevail very well. Like, you got to look for these European kids. Rob McIntyre's grown up in Scotland. He was all over the place yesterday, but he's also started off pretty well today. So I look for some of the European guys.
What kind of value with Brown at plus 2,500? What kind of value would you say that is on him?
Oh boy, to get him to win, it would be an absolute miracle. But every once in a while, if you look at the history, you'll get a one-off that wins this championship. Not very often. I would say, you know, if you want to throw a couple of bucks at it, do it. But it might be fun to watch. Today will be telling. Today will really be telling. He's never been in this position before. Last group, Open Championship. The kid's been an Open Championship fan. You know, as a youngster, he was attending all these different events, and so it'll be interesting.
Jay, what do you think of right now? What do you think of Scotty Scheffler at 4-1?
Yeah, I mean that's really good value. The one thing about Sheff is that he's a Texan, so he's played in some of the windy conditions, right? So My thing with Scheffler is that he just doesn't have a lot of experience in Scotland. So I didn't pick him this week, but he's still the best player in the world, John. And at 4-1, I mean, it's worth. Well, you should ask Nate, but it's worth a shot. I mean,
Nate, what do you think? I mean, 4-1 right now, and these odds change every time there's a stroke here. So he's 4-1 right now, best golfer in the world. I mean, is that a good play? Should I jump on that or wait?
I don't know. If it were me, I think I'd wait.
All right, I'll wait.
I mean, there's so many strong players right behind him. Xander Schauffele is 3 under right now. He's 2 under on his round today. Just got started. He's already won a major. Patrick Cantley's right there. There's some really elite players, and then not to mention Lowry, who's already won an Open Championship.
Guys, another guy to look, Justin Rose, sleeper, old guy, right? In his what is he, 43, 44? But he's a major champion, and he's grown up over there. And for him, it's interesting how this Royal Troon is so quirky. You see a lot of older players playing well this week. Darren Clark made the cut. Padraig Harrington made the cut. Justin Rose is interesting. What are his odds, John?
He's right now. He just moved from 15-1 to 10-1. So he must have hit a ball good or something. Scheffler's he was plus 400. It was 4-1. Then he went to 3.5-1. Now he's back up to 4. But your old guy Justin Rose 10-1
plus 1 for top 5.
10-1, and Nate mentioned Patrick Cantley, or somebody mentioned him.
Yep.
22-1.
There's some value with Patrick Cantley. He's really playing well right now.
He has been.
I love bet
well.
golf.
Yeah,
I can see. So the thing with Rose, I think, Jay, on the one hand, because of the weather, it's kind of a crapshoot. You never know. Rose can be really frustrating to cheer for these days because he's always kind of in the mix when he's playing well, and then on Sunday he kind of falls apart. And some of that I imagine is age. Some of that is just, it's hard to win a major. It's a lot harder to win a major when you're like 43, 44. But his game is right for there. Some of these guys are still struggling to figure out the pot bunkers. I've been watching clips of them smacking, balls out of the pot bunker and watching it roll right back into the pot bunker. It happens all the time every year at the Open and Links Golf. So, he's an interesting one to think about. Nate, I wanted to get your thoughts both on Daniel Brown and Scotty Scheffler. I know you talked a little bit about the guys behind Scheffler, so I don't talk about that too much. But, I imagine Brown played on the DP World Tour. I would imagine. I could be wrong on that. He's really young. We're talking like 2 tournaments, 2 cuts made. Now he's playing with Lowry today in the final group. Is he going to implode? Do you like his game here? He is a European, so you never know. Is this someone we can watch? Because he does have good odds. For him to win a major would be something to talk about forever, I think. But you never know with golf.
He would be among the flukiest to win ever. I mean, he would be in the Ben Curtis, Todd Hamilton category of Open champions in the 21st century, I think, for sure. In terms of just like, where did this come from? I mean, because Daniel Brown's like, this is his first Open championship, but he's not exactly a kid. He's almost 30 years old. And before this tournament, he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 missed cuts in a row. Then he gets to the Scottish Open and he finishes 61st. I've never seen a data golf chart on a player that is this strange. The way the charts are, basically, for those listening, is it's a series of circles. And the further you are away from the center on a certain thing, the better you are. I've never seen anyone have an around the green rating that sits exactly in the middle of the circle, which indicates that he's got the worst short game in professional golf that they track. It's sort of unbelievable, like how bad his short game stats are. I mean, like a guy that's losing like 3 strokes, like around the green in a tournament, and it's like not that unusual. And that's really hard to do. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy that has really just not shown up with a lot of aspects of his game. And he's doing this all on putting, and his putting is well below average as well. And he's just been riding like the world's hottest putter in this tournament. There's one thing that we know about golf and golf handicapping is that putting is the least reliable indicator of success. It's the most variant in terms of performance and sort of what you can expect to do. It's not uncommon for guys to get hot putters at this level, but it's really hard to sustain a hot putter over multiple rounds. Daniel Brown's done it a couple days, but just like looking at the underlying stats for Daniel Brown, like I don't see a lot of. I mean, this is the first time he's gained strokes putting in like really months. So, you know, I mean, he's catching a heater and like good for Daniel Brown, but for this to continue and for him to sort of keep climbing up the leaderboard seems like a real stretch.
Well,
Guys,
look,
here's interesting for Patrick Cantlay. The last 10 Open champions were first-time major winners. The last 10. So
that's funny. Yeah, and Cantlay is, and
he's
you know,
looking.
we spend a lot of time wondering when Cantlay is going to get it done. But I don't know. I don't like watching Cantlay because he is a snooze. He just has no personality. He's like Morikawa. He's just out there kind of boring.
And he's
but
so slow and like,
oh yeah, he's like the slowest. Yeah. Dad, before we get in too much to some of our open picks here, we'll do them all in a minute. You know, we know you love betting golf now. You're all hooked. But you know, one of the things
betting golf.
I know you
winners.
love betting. I know you do. But you also want winners at the horse track, and the best place to go, even though the state is ruled by your arch nemesis, Glenn Youngkin, the best place to go is Colonial Downs. So please tell us a little bit about how people can get involved in Colonial Downs, because that's going on right now. Like you can, if you're in Virginia, you know, I'm sorry that Glenn Youngkin is your governor, but you can go to the track right now and start betting
right now
the horses. So go ahead and tell us how people get involved with Colonial Downs.
Post time today, 4:30. Post time Sunday, 1:30. This is the most beautiful track in America. I tied with Saratoga, and I've been to all of them. I always say this because I always give my top three. Saratoga and Colonial Downs tied for first. Oak Lawn in Little Rock outside there, number 3, and then everything else is after that. Del Mar maybe top 5, but it's just a beautiful racetrack. But in Virginia, especially when you go to Rosie's, you're going to get biggest jackpots and biggest payouts. Very simple. They have the smallest take of any casino in the country because the General Assembly, in order to get the slot license there, they said, well, you're going to have to give more money to the players. That's where they get the biggest jackpots, biggest payouts at Rosie's. But Colonial Downs, go to colonialdowns.com right now. You can get in for free. That's fine. But you want to get your nice box seat. You want to get your table by the window. You want to go to the Jockey Club. All you got to do is go to colonialdowns.com. Post time today, 4:30 Saturday, 1:30 Friday and Sunday. And they got stake races coming up. Now, I can't believe I missed the first 2 weeks because I was at the RNC convention here in Milwaukee, but I'm going to be there next week. It's so much fun. Got to go to, all you have to do is go to colonialdowns.com, colonialdowns.com. Great purse. They got some of the best jockeys. They got some of the best young horses there from around the country. And so Colonial Downs has really made something. And look, I have no problem with Glenn Youngkin governor. I think he's an extraordinary governor. He vetoed that scumbag skill games bill. Thank you, Glenn. You get a pass on that forever. You're a great governor, but holding, rallies for 2028 during Trump's convention, stop. Okay, just stop, right?
Yeah,
although I did enjoy drinking your booze and eating your food. So thank you for that, Governor Youngkin. Other than that, go to colonialdowns.com, colonialdowns.com. And Mom had an extra drink just for you, on you, because it was free. Thanks, Glenn. Other than that, colonialdowns.com, baby. Way to go.
Yeah, people don't know this, but when you log on to the stream, this show, I always log on about 20 minutes early so that Mike or Al, if he's whoever's producing that week, we can check my sound and the lighting because I host the show, so I come on a little early. But when you come on early, you are kind of immediately hardwired into just whatever they're playing on your app or on the radio for your show from the week before. It's just usually like, your best of or some sort of clip, some sort of interview or something. And this week I logged on and it was immediately It was you and whoever the guest was just complaining about Glenn Youngkin and how he, you're like, he was never going to be vice president, all this stuff. And then I was so happy because you were complaining, and then immediately you were like, but he did veto that stupid skill games bill. So it just doesn't matter the context. Whenever you talk about Glenn Youngkin, you will never, ever not tell people that he vetoed your most hated bill of all time, of the skill games bill. Every time you bring him up, it was hilarious to listen to it on your Monday through Friday.
Fairness in media here, guys.
I'm telling you, he was dogging Youngkin, and then he just stopped. He was like, he did veto that stupid skill games bill, and I hate so much. So got to give him that. And
credit where credit is due.
You just, you and Glenn Youngkin, it's a complicated relationship. But hey, in 2028, you may feel a lot different. Nate, we got a couple minutes, Nate. We got to give Dad some winners for the Open here. So let's get your picks in for the winners, and Jay would throw some out as well, and then we'll go to Jay's show with the Tom Watson interview.
Yeah, I need a winner, Nate. Let's go.
All right. If I'm looking at towards the top of the board, I think Xander Schauffele just moved to 8-1. I think that this could be the summer of Xander. In a lot of ways, he already got off to a pretty hot start. I think that he could probably continue that momentum and really start to run these guys down pretty soon. Because when Xander gets hot, he tends to get really low, and this looks like a gettable course for him. So I don't mind Xander at 8-1. If you're just looking for the top of the board, and then, like I said, if you want to go a little bit lower, Cantlay just moved to 25-1, and he can certainly get moving on this leaderboard at some point soon. I mean, they just started, so he still has a lot of holes to sort of make up ground. Cantlay's game feels like it should be good here. He hits the ball pretty flat and low. He's a good putter. He tends to be sort of, a little bit straighter, not sort of a bomber. Profile-wise, Cantlay fits this course, but Xander's got to be feeling good about his chances again to win a second major this year. I mean, he has already got the monkey off his back. I think that there's probably few players in the world that are more confident about.
I just bet Xander. I got 8-1. I bet Scheffler earlier. I got 4-1. Plus, I got my 25% DraftKings profit bonus. So I actually got him a 5-1. Now he's down to 3-1, and I just bet Xander, whatever his name is. I don't even know his name. Schauffele or something. Yeah. 8-1. So there's my two. There's my one of these are going to win, and Nate, you're going to go 3-0 in golf on 3 consecutive weeks. Unheard of.
That is unheard of, actually. I mean, that would be
totally
incredible. That'd be an incredible heater here.
I'm going to start getting accounts in DraftKings and all those. If we hit this one, man, it's over.
Yeah, 3 in a row, and we'll make Nate famous. Look, Dad, you're turning into a golf degenerate. Now you got multiple guys on the board.
John.
Yeah. You got
multiple guys up there.
I'm telling you. And what'll happen next, Dad, because you'll have you'll be spraying around the board, and Dan knows this because he does it for soccer all the time too. No, there's no adrenaline rush quite like golf or soccer when you're just like right there at the end, and you might have a winner. When Schauffele is walking down the 18th hole, and all he's got to do is make par, and you cash your ticket. Oh, there's nothing. Yeah. Nothing better.
It's like a horse just getting a neck ahead and just saying, "I hope this race just dies right here," and they still have 100 yards.
The only thing comparable to that is when you're betting a hockey game and you laid and you took a goal and a half, and your team is down by 1, and with a minute and a half to go, they pull the goalie from the net.
Oh no! Correct. A correct score is so much worse, John. A correct score is so much worse because a goal at either end screws you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when you hit that correct score, that's why I love betting unders in football, because it's like as soon as you get to that thing, you're like, no more scoring. Fourth quarter, all defense, baby. Let's just pound the rock. We can't have a field goal.
And that right there is the beauty of Iowa.
Yeah, that's very true. Look, I was happy to see everyone today. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Thanks for coming on to the show, guys. Thanks for listening. It's been a long show for me as well. I don't have the fan on, so I'm like covered in sweat. So great show, guys. Had a terrific time. Thanks for Jay Delsing coming on, Dan Angel, Nate Perry, and of course my dad. Up next on the John Fredericks Radio Network is Golf with Jay Delsing, Tom Watson interview. Go ahead and check it out right now. and we will see you next week.
Russell Henley. Check out Russell.
Russell
He's a
Henley.
sleeper.
Yeah, I like
Love
Russ.
it.
Great show,
I like
guys.
Russ on this
Great
a
show.
lot. So, all right.